From the 11 Alive studios, this is The Georgia Vote with Faith Jesse and Zach Merchant.
Good morning and welcome in. Faith is off this week, but you will see her interview with U.S. Senate candidate Derek Dooley coming up in just a few minutes. Now, this was another big week in Georgia politics. Thursday, the U.S. Senate rejected two plans to address the looming expiration of Affordable Care Act subsidies. Both of Georgia's senators, Democrats, Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, each made a case to extend those tax breaks, but ultimately neither a Democratic nor a Republican proposal got the required 60 votes to pass. Those subsidies are now set to expire at the end of this year and could cause premiums on average to double for more than 20 million Americans who benefit from that funding. State Democrats are celebrating a special election victory in Northeast Georgia. Democrat Eric Gissler defeated Republican Mac Guest in House District 121, which is rooted in Watkinsville and Athens. It is a conservative leading district that President Trump won by double digits in 2024. And there is yet another election coming up this year, one more in 2025. In 2 days, voters in District 35, that's parts of Fulton and Cobb counties, they will vote in a runoff for state senate. It comes down to two Democrats, former state representative Roger Bruce and former Cobb County Board of Education member Jaha Howard. In just a few weeks, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene will step down from Congress following her surprise announcement to resign in the middle of her term. Her decision came after a high-profile break with and sharp criticism from President Donald Trump following her support of a House effort to force the release of the so-called Epstein files. This week, we asked the conservative congresswoman about her time in office and what made her decide now was the time to resign.
When it came down to standing with women who were raped at 14 and 16 years old, women who were victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and others, they say there are others, the President Trump called me a traitor, and that was shocking. Was there one deciding moment that made it clear for you that you were going to resign? President Trump called me a traitor, but I voted with him 98% of the time. But when it came down to receiving death threats, a pipe bomb threat on my home, a pipe bomb threat on my family's construction company, multiple pizza doxing deliveries, and then ultimately very serious death threats on my own son, that really was where it came to a point of me asking, what must I do to continue to be a representative? Must I be killed like Charlie Kirk or watch one of my own children be murdered? And I think that comes to a point where any American can look at that and say that's a high bar and way too much to ask. Does it feel like the president betrayed you and your loyalty? Well, I certainly, of course, definitely. You have said in this interview in so many words, and you've said in other interviews, including on CNN just a few weeks ago, you said you want to move past what you called the toxic politics of our modern system. You yourself have a history of making sometimes controversial comments. Looking back, do you feel like you have anything personally to apologize for and possibly contributing to that discourse? This seems to be the popular question from everyone that is interviewing me, and I've very much already addressed that. I don't think it has to be said over and over again in every single interview I do, but I'm sincere in my words. I think that America has been ripped apart by both sides of the aisle with toxic politics, and it comes from both parties and members of both parties. We see it in fundraising emails. And not only have I been a part of it, every Republican has and every Democrat has. I've also been a victim of it, just as many others have been victims of it. And so I think it's important for each person to take responsibility for their own action and words. And I think that responsibility falls on every single one in leadership. I know that you've mentioned here in this interview, President Trump calling you a traitor was a breaking point for you. In the past, you've tweeted, you called Republican Congressman Bob Good a traitor. You called some Republicans who voted for President Biden's infrastructure bill traitor Republicans. You've used that language too. Do you regret that? Yes, I've already addressed this before, and I'll stand with what I've already said. I've also been the victim of it. I was actually accused by Democrats online of being the pipe bomber on January 5th, which was such an outrageous, dangerous lie that brought death threats on me back in 21 and 22. I've also been used many times and called a traitor by Democrats in fundraising emails and campaign ads. So again, I want to reiterate, this is a two-way street, and I seem to be the only one willing to take responsibility.
You say you're taking responsibility for it. I just want to be really clear. Do you regret, do you apologize for saying those things?
I've already addressed this. I said it on CNN. I've said it back in 2020, and thank you. I've already addressed it.
Could you address it here again, though? And if not, why not?
Thank you. I've already addressed it.
Ma'am, I don't want to dwell here, but I don't think you have addressed it here. If it's something you regret, I mean, could you just explain why you don't want to say it again?
I'm sorry, but I don't know why you have this motive. And I don't quite understand it, but I've already addressed it, and people have thanked me, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. But this isn't an exercise that I should have to go through on every single interview, and it's quite unbecoming of you to continue to have to push that.
Ma'am, some people would argue that saying colleagues were traitors was unbecoming. I don't think this is an unreasonable question.
See, so this is the toxic nature that I'm talking about, and now you're participating in it yourself here with 11 Alive. And so again, I think you should take responsibility of your own words, the product that you're producing here on your network. I've done my part, so I think it would be good for you to do yours.
Well, ma'am, these are your words, but it seems like we're not going to get any further here. So I do want to ask you one last question.
Oh, you know what? Thank you so much. I appreciate the interview. Hopefully, good luck.
Ma'am, are you going to run again? That is just part of our conversation. You can catch our full interview streaming right now on 11 Alive Plus. Lots to talk about. Now is a good time to bring in our political roundtable. Today we have Fal Sabak, Senior Managing Director at Denton's. She's also the former Executive Director of the Georgia House Democratic Caucus. Republican strategist Joshua Edmonds also joining us today. He is the Vice President of the Stone Ridge Group. He was the Executive Director for the Georgia Life Alliance from 2018 to 2022, where he authored the first draft of Georgia's heartbeat bill. And joining us today from the AJC, Chief Politics Reporter Greg Bluestein. He's also an author and a contributor to MS Now. Fal, let's start with you, and then maybe we can go down the line here. We saw the conversation with Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Didn't get an answer to that last question. But from a Democrat's perspective, are Democrats thinking she may be running in the future?
I can never say never at this point, because it's always surprises for us at this point. But she has built up a following. Her district, they still love her. At this point, she's even got independents, Democrats kind of agreeing on some of the talking points that she's been talking recently. And so I wouldn't rule her out for something in the future.
Joshua, I see you nodding your head along here. From a Republican's perspective, where does Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene fit into the conservative movement right now? Fal points out she's more aligned on some topics with some Democrats right now. She's certainly still plenty aligned with a lot of conservative viewpoints as well. She's got this very public break with the president. Where does she fit into this?
You know, Marjorie has forged such a strange path to where if she's not planning to run for something statewide, it's almost a missed opportunity from an objective outside perspective. She's making this argument of America first, America only, Georgia first, Georgia only. And like you said, finding a place where she's arguing that she's more faithful to these principles than even some other national leaders. I think there's a lot of folks in her district and statewide that would look to her and see someone who really does embody those sort of America First principles, who would have a great shot in the primary.
Greg, you've covered Georgia politics for many years. You covered the Congresswoman's rise to power, winning what was a pretty crowded primary election, wins the seat, goes to Congress, develops a national profile. Were you surprised when she announced that she was going to be stepping down in January?
Yeah, when I got a text saying, "There goes your weekend," I realized, oh no.
I got a text like that too.
But Zach, let me say this. Should she decide to run, those questions you asked her, she'll get an avalanche of those types of questions, not just from reporters, but also, of course, from voters, and she'll have to address that even more. I know she said she's already addressed those, but there'll be even more and more of those types of questions because we've all seen that rise and the seeming metamorphosis, the seeming transformation from a MAGA warrior into someone who's something in between right now. Do I think she'll run something? I do. But we also heard her say she's not going to run for president. She would hate the Senate, and I kind of believe that part. Will she run for governor? She said no. But you can certainly see her running for statewide office in the future, because that was what she was hinting at all year long, right? We know she was flirting with the idea of running this cycle until President Trump and his allies told her, that's too much. So I do think that's still on her mind.
But Joshua, if you're a strategist, if you're advising some of the Republican candidates who are running for the various statewide offices that are on the ballot coming up next year, what are you telling your candidates? Are you watching to see what influence the Congresswoman may have, even if she is not herself running for something?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the kind of primary we're going to have in 2026, and you're seeing sort of this divide in the base almost, you have to find a way to embody those principles that Republican primary voters clearly are zoned in on. We had polling a couple weeks ago showing Donald Trump 82% approval rating here in Georgia, but also we're seeing folks who are a little bit frustrated with the way D.C. politics is happening. You got to find a way to thread the needle that we're Georgia first, and we're also bringing that America First movement to Georgia at the same time.
Val, what do Democrats take away from this kind of 4-8 week saga that the Congresswoman has gone on?
I think that they are seeing, from the Democratic perspective, you're seeing, and she's not going to be the only one who ends up resigning her seat. A lot of the GOP folks are either trying to find a new direction, they're getting frustrated with their party, and they're trying to figure out what's the next step. And I think that you're going to see a few more resignations.
These are all factors that are leading into, guys, a very big election year coming up in 2026. We've got a lot to talk about. We'll be back with the panel in a moment. And when we return, Faith Jesse sits down with U.S. Senate candidate Derek Dooley, a Republican. He's running, he says, as a political outsider. We ask him how he would stay that way if he wins. Republican candidate for United States Senate in Georgia, Derek Dooley, he is calling out all of Washington. The former football coach is framing himself as a political outsider and tells our Faith Jesse that D.C. politicians failed to fix the health care issue for Georgians. He's also faced backlash from his own party for an ad criticizing Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff and Republican Representatives Mike Collins and Buddy Carter for the government shutdown. That is where Faith begins this conversation.
Why do you think you got so much pushback, though, from your Republican colleagues?
Well, I'm not sure, given that I had nothing to do with that ad. Our campaign had nothing to do with that ad. But I do have a strong opinion on government shutdowns. And, this is one of those things that every couple of years, American people like me go, seriously, your number one job is to fund the government, and we can't do it. And I think we can end it. You know what I saw on shutdowns? I saw congressmen, senators, congressmen going home. They're spending time with their family. They're vacationing. They're going out campaigning, talking about what a great job they're doing and raising money, and they're getting paid. This defies all common sense. There's no other industry out there that when you don't do your job, you get rewarded.
If it was you and not Mr. Ossoff, would you support what Democrats are putting on the table, or would you support what Republicans are putting on the table?
Well, I like to think if I was in that seat, we wouldn't get to this point, because I would have been on front of this issue in the beginning. And look, I'm all for the subsidies and helping the people get health care that need the help. But what I'm not for is allowing people who don't need the help to get help from the government. And so a lot of these extensions that were created after COVID or during COVID to try to help a certain time frame that were passed by the Democrats, I'm not sure why they want them permanent, because they're the ones that voted them to be temporary. It was for an emergency action, and we shouldn't be subsidizing people who make $500,000 a year. We need to be protecting the people who need the help.
Now, I don't know if everybody who's subsidized makes $500,000 a year. I know a lot of the people who are subsidized fall below that line, but I do also...
And I'm all for that. I mean, I'm all for people...
So you're okay with subsidies for people who
of course,
are on
for
a
people,
certain
absolutely
income.
I am.
Okay.
But, these extensions that were passed allowed people with, incomes as high as you can go to start grifting off the government,
So basically,
for lack
you're
of a
saying we need
better
to take
word.
a good look at who exactly
Absolutely.
are getting
Let's get
these
back
subsidies.
to even how it was before COVID, when this was all designed to help people at a certain poverty level that needs the help. And we certainly need to do that as a government.
Politicians that people say, they say the same thing, then they get up there and they learn how Washington really works. How can you make a promise to the people that you won't do that?
Well, I would ask them to basically look at my last 57 years of my life and sort of how I've conducted myself and how I did 28 years as a coach, constantly fighting for our young people and their families to try to deliver results. All right, now that doesn't mean I had the best coaching record at all, but it was something bigger than that. It was impacting young people. It was trying to not only help them become better players, but also better people and husbands and dads. I would listen and bring people together and try to find common ground and deliver results. And I think that's why it's a good time to start sending some people who are outsiders. Our president was an outsider. He was someone who didn't accept business as usual in Washington. And whether you like the results or not, Faith, he delivered more results in the first 6 months on his job than any other president in my lifetime. And that's because he doesn't say, oh, tell me how Washington works. Certainly there's a process that you have to respect when you go up there, but that doesn't mean that you have to fall in line, and when they tell you you can't do that, you just submit.
But would you agree that a lot of Republicans do fall in line with President Trump when he said what he says goes?
Well, I don't know if that's the reason they're falling in line, if it's because President Trump is saying it or if it's they really believe in the policies. And so I'm going to certainly fall in line, as you say, with a lot of things that you may think I'm falling in line, but it's really because I believe this is what's best for the Georgia people.
If you do get this seat, you're a senator now, and there's something that you disagree with Donald Trump, and now you're threatened to be primaried, will you still fall in line?
I'm serving the people of Georgia. That's who I'm going to represent. This seat I'm trying to win is not for me. It's for the people of Georgia.
So
and if it's
disagree,
the right thing for the people of Georgia, it's the right thing in my heart for the people of Georgia, I'm absolutely going to go that direction.
Faith's full interview with Dooley is available right now on 11 Alive Plus, which is free to download on your TV. So we are back now again with the Politics Roundtable. Guys, a lot to discuss. Let's talk about something we talked about at the beginning of the show. There was a special election shakeup this week. Greg, House District 121 saw a lot of people say an unexpected result this week.
Unexpected, to say the least. This was not on a lot of people's radars. Of course, Democrats and Republicans were both fighting fiercely for that district in their backyards, but it was not really on the top of our minds elsewhere around the state. And that upset victory really sent seismic shockwaves, not just through Democrats, but Republicans as well, who said this is an alarm bell for next year's midterm.
This was a seat that was viewed up until this point as a reliably Republican seat. Eric Gissler, the Democrat, flips the seat. Joshua, what's a Republican strategist's response to that? What do you make of all this?
So I may be in the minority here. I was not terribly shocked. Early on in the night, when we had early voting numbers and we saw the trends, I wasn't shocked. I was hey, it looks like this is going to be a pickup. But if you roll the tape back, 2017, the first time Marcus Whitehour ran for the seat when it came open, also lost to a Democrat in a special election and an off-year special. And the year after President Trump took office, very similar picture here. Fast forward to the next Republican primary in the even number year with regular turnout. Marcus wins that seat, holds that seat strong, builds his gains through redistricting all the way through last November 24. I think this will be the same picture in this race next year as well as in Fitz-Johnson's PSC seat. These are seats that were victims of off-year turnout. Next year, when we go back into the even year regular turnout, both those seats are turning back over to Republican hands.
Val, for Democrats, do you view it the same way? I've heard from a lot of Democrats who are pointing to this and saying, look, there's momentum building here.
Yeah, look, there's definitely momentum building. We just picked up 2 statewide seats. You flipped this seat, which was, pretty solidly Republican at this point. It is momentum. It means that the messaging that these candidates are going out to the Georgian people, talking to them about, is resonating. And I think that they just have to keep building. They cannot take these seats for granted. They, just like what Joshua was saying earlier, it did flip back the next cycle back in 2018. The Democrats cannot take it for granted. They have to build on their gains, and they have to keep going strong.
We'll find out how it all plays out in just a few months in 2026. Guys, we appreciate you as always. The Georgia Vote will be back for more right after this. Dr. Casey Brock says she is ready to get to work. The new Atlanta Board of Education member won the District 8 runoff earlier this month. She talked with Faith Jesse this week and says her #1 priority is boosting literacy rates across Atlanta public schools.
So now that you have this seat, you're going in. I'm sure you have given it a lot of thought, a lot of plan. What is your message to those who elected you?
Yes, I'm so excited to make that my day 1 priority. Like, where is it? What's happening? And really just kind of understanding where is the money being spent on our literacy proficiency and improving those scores? What are the needs of the different schools that are implementing it? Where are the coaches? Like, how is that going? And just do a real assessment of the progress of implementing the science of reading. Because truly, we can talk about all these different things, but if kids are not reading, then what are we doing?
Brock is one of 3 new members of the Atlanta Board of Education. Stay with us. Our voice of the voter, who went from the corporate world to starting her own business. That's up next. Well, we say it every week. You can't have the Georgia vote without Georgia voters. This week, we sit down with Ayanna Hunter. She spent years in the corporate world before a layoff in 2018 inspired her to take her longtime passion for hosting events and turn it into her own business she calls Glitz of Atlanta. When you see people coming together, smiling, laughing, enjoying each other at a function that you put together,
yes,
when you're watching all that, how does that hit your heart?
It warms my heart. There are so many times that I've actually been literally crying tears of joy because I see that my work brings people joy. It makes them happy. There are certain times that I've had clients that have never had a birthday party all of their life. So their 50th or 60th birthday party may be their very first. So to see the happiness and joy and also to see the family engagement is heartwarming.
When you look at the state of our politics right now, what's the #1 issue you want to see your elected leaders address?
I would love to see our elected leaders address family and the need for help amongst the community. So I would love to see them address the needs of underprivileged kids, foster kids, managing the homeless. There's a huge need for, the homeless to be taken care of.
What worries you the most?
What worries me the most is the lack of support for underprivileged families and those that are low income.
It's a holiday time now, too.
Yes.
Are those kind of issues even more top of mind for you this time of year?
Yes. As we are providing or having give-backs and things like that, it's very important to me. So it's heartwarming to reach out and help those that are not able to help themselves at this time.
We always end with this question. What are you most optimistic about?
I am most optimistic about my future and my daughter's future, so yes.
2 daughters.
Yes.
One about to graduate college.
Yes.
Another a proud college graduate.
Absolutely.
That's got to bring a smile to any mom's face.
Yes, yes, sir. I'm very proud of them.
Well, thanks for watching us today. We hope to see you here back again next Sunday at 11 for another edition of the Georgia Vote.